So let's call the meeting to order, please. Nat, are you going to do the roll for us today?
Yes, I'll do the roll call for us, and we'll start with you, Chair John O'Neill.
Present.
Vice Chair Bill Bojo. That's your nickname. Bill is here.
He's not talking.
Oh, he's muted.
He's here, but muted.
I'm sorry, here.
Oh, great. Good to see you, Bill. And Commissioner Castagna.
Here.
And Commissioner Evans.
Here.
Commissioner Peak.
Present.
Commissioner Sovereign.
Here.
And Commissioner Wall.
Here.
Outstanding. We have all commissioners present.
Thank you very much. So today we have two presentations. So before we get to the rest of our agenda, where we normally start with the minutes, we'll have presentations. The first one is from Nancy and Sherna on a public art proposal. Inga, do you have any introduction to this, or is Nancy just going to launch in?
Well, I can say that the Public Art Committee had the pleasure of meeting with Nancy and Sherna to talk about their proposal. And their proposal is a piece of a big NCIP project that had been approved and had been all set to go, but then had been defunded because of the economic impact of COVID-19. So Nancy and Sherna have selected a piece of a big panoply of projects, and they are seeking funding, and they are seeking our interest, your interest, and eventually your approval. So that's sort of the context for this presentation.
Thank you very much. Nancy, are you going to start, or is Sherna going to start? And you need to unmute.
And while Nancy's unmuting, I'll quickly say, Nat, you might want to be ready to show the image of the bear that was in the packet. I don't know if that's easy for you to do, but that might be a nice graphic to have there. And Sherna is holding it up for us too.
Okay, thank you for the introduction, Inga. That was perfect. This is a small piece of a big project that Sherna figured out very quickly we could get funding for the community foundation. So the grant had to be turned in by March 5th. That's why we are so far ahead of the game that way. But we're coming to you with a lot of facts and then some things that are still in the works. So I'll start with that. We were able to come up with 5 locations coming into Monterey to have a monument, for lack of a better word, a structure that will say, "Welcome to history." We're trying to let tourists and locals know that there's more to do here in Monterey besides the regular things, Fisherman's Wharf, Cannery Row, and the aquarium. We want them to realize what treasures that Monterey has. So we were able to contact Chris Swanson that did the original bear sculptures at Colton Hall, and she has created this sculpture for us. This is a model that you're seeing that's made out of clay. It's a very rough model. She has the original at the foundry right now. It's only 7.5 inches high. And when we get that back, we will make sure that all of you get to see it. The actual base of the stand will be 6 feet, and this sculpture on top will be approximately 3 feet. So it will be about 9 feet when it's finished. And the base is a rectangular base that we copied from the columns at the cemetery, the Catholic cemetery, as you come in on Fremont Street. The 2 places that we proposed, the first one is coming off Highway 1 on Fremont Street across from MPC. And we don't have an exact location, but it would be somewhere where your mask sign is now. The second one is on Munris at Dondavi Park. And we don't have an exact location for that one either, but we're working with Louis Marcuzzo to figure out what is best. We did go to traffic, and the traffic engineer said that anything that was put up cannot impede traffic, pedestrians, or bicycles. So we went to Dondavi Park and looked carefully, and there's lots of room where this would work. The other 3 locations would be coming into Monterey from Pacific Grove before you get to the tunnel, one coming in on Del Monte, a round window on the bay, and the other one would be at Spanish Plaza. And when we get this grant, I don't want to say if, but when we get this grant, we're going to go for another grant for those 3. And the base will remain the same, but on top can be different. But these 2 will have the bear. The bear that will be on Fremont Street will be the cub is catching a fish. The one that will be on Munros, he's trying to pick some flowers. He's grabbing at flowers. So they'll be just a tiny bit different. The other 3 haven't been decided how the sculpture on top will be, but Chris Swanson will do those 2. I think that what you saw in your packet is part of the original grant that we turned in. And where I should have said at the beginning, our sponsor is the Historic Garden League, because we had to have a nonprofit as a sponsor. And so there is money of $4,000 in that grant for signage that will go in Casa del Oro garden. And that will come out of what we asked for. So that's in the grant also. So right now I'd like to take questions from everyone.
Well, Nancy, you explained how you happened upon, after careful consideration, how you happened upon the bears as images instead of, say, famous Montereyans or something like that. Do you want to say something about that? Yes, we thought long and hard, and we thought of someone from the Fandango, a dancer. We had a lot of different suggestions, and then we realized after talking to Hans that any group of people we choose is going to be political. So the bears are not political, and they represent so much of California history that that's what we finally decided on. I should also say we're working with the Planning Commission now, Todd Bennett. He is helping us along too, and will help us with anything final we need to do. We will know if we get the grant the beginning of May. So I've quit saying when we get the grant. We're very excited that we're going to get this.
Nancy, this is Bill Watkowski. I think it's a great idea. When you mention a bear, I thought you might be going with the famous bear and boar. I think we have a statue of them up in the conference center somewhere, don't we?
I'm not sure. I know the bear and boar is very famous around here, but what we've done, we let Chris come up with the idea, and this is what she came up with.
I see.
Are there any other questions?
I'll throw a little in,
Mike?
Nancy, Mike Sovereign. I love her bears down at the Colton Hall, and a lot of people like them. This one, it's not going to be easy to interact with, as it's up on that pedestal, and I'm having trouble. This is part of some other structure, or what are people, how do people interact with this?
People will not interact with it. It'll be for people driving by to realize that Monterey has more to offer here than just the typical things. We have a lot of history that most people don't know about. So this will not be interactive. Our sixth sculpture that we can put in for next year's grant will be at Fisherman's Wharf, and that will be an interactive sculpture that people can interact with. But these two will not be where they can interact with them. They could go to the one on Fremont Street. They could park somewhere along any of the roads and walk there and have their picture taken, but they really won't be able to interact with it.
No selfies.
No.
Yeah.
Well, at Fremont, they could certainly walk there and take a selfie. And the same thing would happen in Del Monte Park. If you're riding a bike up the trail through the park, you could hop off and walk over to where the statue is going to be, because it's going to be close to the sidewalk or the street in order to be visible to
Right.
to,
That's true.
drivers. So, you know, anybody on the sidewalk or anybody that's taking the trail could easily walk over there and take a selfie. They're just not in places where people would normally want to do that, I don't think. And you're not really, I don't think you're really encouraging people to do that here. You're just trying to attract attention with the sculpture and get them to read the sign and think about, oh, where is that history? And then they have to go find it. That's the next problem.
Correct.
I have a question. So Nancy, I really like what you're doing. I appreciate this, and I love the bear. How did you yourself get involved in this? And do you have a background in this? And how the city thanks you, but I mean, what is your particular role here?
It's all Sherna. Sherna got me involved in it. It was her ideas, and we just kind of elaborated on what she had put in for this big NIP project. When we realized that we could get money from the community foundation, then we started working on this grant.
And Sherna, I believe, had done a lot of work with Dennis Copeland on the path of history. So
Yes.
he has a history of working with us on our history projects.
Okay, thank you.
Kimberly?
Yes, you might have covered this in our subcommittee meeting, but I don't have it written down. What's the size of the words? Welcome to history. Like, you don't have that?
We don't have that yet. We want to get the grant before we go into real detail on it. And yeah, as soon as we have the grant in our hand, we will be back with a lot more detail.
But it's big enough. I mean, it's for the driving public. So
Correct.
it's enough for them to see. Okay.
And it will just say welcome to history. It won't be a lot of wordage that they have to try and read.
Yeah, my understanding from our meeting was that the pedestal is 6 feet wide.
4 feet wide.
4 feet wide. Okay. So 4 feet wide, you may have to stack the words on top of each other in order to get them big.
Correct. Yes.
I think you can make it. It'll be big enough.
Sherna, would you like to add anything to the discussion? You're muted. You'll have to unmute.
Let's see. I don't know where to press.
You have. You're good.
Okay.
The idea is to introduce people where they're coming into town. This is from the north at Fremont and from the south at Dondavi Park. Because it just says welcome to history, and the letters will be large enough to read. That's the whole idea, from a distance, so that they can head in that direction. And there will be a strong arrow that indicates the general area, and it doesn't have a bunch of zigzags in it. It's just a straight line and a bend pointing to downtown. Because there are plenty of things for people to find in the way of history downtown, but we just wanted to acquaint them as soon as possible to the fact that there is a historic district.
Do you think there are sufficient signs already in place in the historic district so
I
that
think
once they follow the arrow, they're okay?
Well, it depends on what they have. We do have some follow-up ideas for indicating more specifically where historic features are. I was just in Pacific Grove a couple of days ago, and I noticed they had small signs on the sidewalk. They're kind of like the neighborhood signs in Monterey, but they're not as large. And they indicate a variety of things going to the left or to the right. And we might do something like that, or work with the street signs, because the routes that we're directing them to may not have a lot of historic features on them exactly, but to the right and to the left, turning to the right or the left, they'll find more features. And of course, it depends on what they come into town with, what kind of information they have before they get to town, or what they might look up on the Monterey website. That would be an important thing, to put it on the website.
Thank you.
I think Bob had a comment.
I would think that's one more reason we should go back to the blue line for the path of history, because that's easily discovered, whereas the buttons and the chevrons and things like that are not easy to discover necessarily. But the old blue line that was there back in the 80s for the path of history was easy to come across and figure out very quickly that this is something you want to follow.
Sherna, did I understand that you'll be coming back subsequently to the commission, and you may have some additional information on signage?
It won't be part of this grant. This grant is just focusing on these two structures and their strategic location. But we see there are many possibilities unfolding after this is done.
Okay. I agree with you, Bob. There seems to be no coordinated signage system to get people to go to historic elements of Monterey. It's everybody kind of does their own thing, and you can see many of them, but if you wanted to see all of them, it might be difficult.
Oh, I do know that the city has a wayfinding program. I believe it has been halted or paused to some extent because of funding, but there was consultant was brought in, and there was quite a bit of study about wayfinding. So that might be something that you would like to task me with, finding that study and finding out the status and what, if anything, were the specific recommendations that had to do with history.
Maybe Sherna knows, where are we on the update of the path of history, or the extension of the path of history?
So,
That was part of the NIP request originally, expanding the path of history. And I don't want anybody to be alarmed, but the idea was that so much of the path of history, you're going down commercial streets and you're looking at a facade. And the idea of expanding the path of history is to direct people to, as well as the existing path of history, off-street situations. I mean, in the day, they might very well have visited over the garden gate rather than coming to the front door. And anything that we can do to give people a sense of the history of the time, I think would be very worthwhile and advantageous and delightful. And this is something that is also embedded in that original NIP approved thing that Inga has obviously a great deal of work that's already been done. And we hope to follow on to some of those things after this initial project has been put in place, is up and visible.
Good, thank you. So Inga, will you take it to get something on the agenda and as an update to those two items?
Sure.
Thank you.
Yes. And we do have a Path of History committee, and that is you, John, and John Castagna and Bill Wachowski. I did give Bill a copy of the latest draft of the Path of History Master Plan, and I will have to get a copy to each of you as well. It's quite a large document, but a lot of work was put into it after Sherna worked on it by Elizabeth Anderson, who some of you might recall. And but that's sort of a plan, a master plan, and then there's another component, which is the NCIP project that Jeff Krebs had talked to you about, that had sort of the more, actual layout on the ground of what the next steps were for taking care of some paths around the Lower Presidio Historic Park. So that's another piece. And then the third piece would be the status of the wayfinding project.
Thank you.
Sure.
We have any other questions on this issue now? Do we have public comment for this, Inga? Or should we open it to the public?
Yes, so Nat, do you want to do that part?
Yes, happy to do so. And just a brief overview of how members of the public can participate in our meeting here today is to either join on ZoomGov using the Zoom app on a mobile or computer device, or also there's an option to call in by telephone. And to join the meeting on Zoom, computer, or smartphone, you can use the link that's listed at isearchmonterey.org, or join by telephone. And our telephone number is area code 833-568-8864. That's a toll-free number. And then enter the meeting ID 160-772-9333 # And our webinar ID for this meeting is 161-622-2299 #. And then if you're prompted to enter a participant ID, you can press # one more time. All the detailed instructions on how to use Zoom is available on our website at monterey.org/public meetings. And individuals can virtually raise their hand using the Zoom app, or they can press 9 to raise their hand by phone. And I can provide more detailed instructions if we have folks join us. But we do not have anyone with raised hands right now for this presentation item.
Thank you very much, Nat. So we need to get a motion, I think. Is that right, Inga?
I think it's just a presentation, so we don't need a motion.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
Even easier. Thank you. Okay,
And I
last
think
chance for questions then. I don't see any. So Nancy and Sherna, thank you very much. Very interesting presentation, and I think a very interesting project.
Thank you for allowing us to come.
Oh, our pleasure. I share your enthusiasm for getting the grant.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we have a second proposal today. Tim Thomas is going to give us a presentation on the second annual History Slam and the first student History Slam on April 24th.
Yes.
Tim?
Okay.
Oh, Inga, go ahead. I'm
I'll
sorry.
introduce this quickly. So at our last meeting, commissioners asked to learn more about the History Slam and asked that it be agendized. And so I went back to the committee that's been working on the Slam, and Tim volunteered to give us the background of how it came about and what is happening this year, and to answer any questions. So take it away, Tim.
Thank you. So it's not really a proposal, but just to give you a little background on the History Slam, it's an idea that I played around with for actually a number of years. Many of you who know me know that I used to work for the Monterey Maritime Museum. And part of my job at the Maritime Museum was I had to go speak to service clubs, Rotary, Kiwanis. I probably spoke to every Rotary Kiwana club between Monterey and Santa Cruz. There were breakfast ones, lunch ones, dinner ones. My favorite one, there's a cocktail one. Yeah, I like that one. I spoke that one quite a few times, actually. But as you know, if you speak to these clubs, I have to give them a little 10-minute, 15-minute presentation. It has to be engaging, and maybe they learn something. And so it actually takes a little skill to do that. And so I really had to work at that. And because I kept getting asked over and over again to do these things, so I had to come up with something new every single time. And so I thought this would be a really interesting way to show history. And so over the last several years, there's been this thing called poetry slams. People show up and read these poems. I thought we should do the same thing with history. And so 2 years ago, I approached my friend Susan Schillinglaw and the Steinbeck Center, and I'm on the board of directors of the Japanese American Citizens League. And we came together and we presented the first history slam at the JACL Hall 2 years ago. It was very successful. We had about 15 presenters at that program, and I learned quite a bit. Actually, it was really a fun thing. And then we skipped last year. Then earlier this year, some of you may remember that we had Cannery Row Days, which is an event that I had created initially, again 2 years ago, that was on Cannery Row. And then because of COVID, I suggested we do it as a virtual event, approaching the Monterey Library, which they embraced it. And I was so happy with the success of Cannery Row Day as a virtual event. And I said the History Slam was just perfect for that kind of thing. So again, I approached the library with this idea and they liked it. Thank you, Inga. And so here we are. So we've been out working on it. We actually have funding through the Cannery Row Company and also through the Western Flyer Foundation. And this year, as Inga indicated, we've added a student element to it. And I'm really happy to report that both the adult and the student element have filled up. So we have 19 presentations planned for the adult version and 19 presentations planned for the student program. And what's really nice is is that the library in Mendocino County also has signed on to do this, to be part of this program too. And the idea of it, of course, is in Monterey County is that you could present any history-related story about Monterey County. As long as it takes place in Monterey County, it can be anything you want. And we have a lot of really interesting submissions, anything, from a woman who wants to talk about the architecture of Thomas Larkin's house to a young man who works actually for George Lucas, who wants to present a program about George Lucas and Star Wars and Ed Ricketts and Joseph Campbell in Monterey. So I think it really is a fun event, and I'm really looking forward to it. So
Thank you.
any questions? I'm happy to answer.
Are there any questions? Kimberly?
Yes, hi. Could you explain like what the presentations will be then? It's not in the style of a poetry slam. It's like reading an essay or reading.
Well, it's in the style of the History Slam in a way. So they can do it live and give a presentation, like a short lecture, or they could present a video. The first time we did this, we had a guy who sang a song. And so it can be any, a variety of different things.
And is there a time limit for?
It's 10 to 15 minutes is the time limit.
Thank you.
Are they going to be all at the same time, essentially like a big Zoom, or how do we access
It's
it?
all on one day, so it'll go from 10 to 4, and you can access it through the library, and then it's just going to go bang, 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 one after the other. There'll be a lunch break, and during the lunch break, we'll also have some presentations that will have been recorded, and these are judged, by the way. We'll have judges, and there is a monetary compensation to the winners, both for the students and for the adults.
And there's you can register on the library's website
Exactly.
to participate. And it is from 10 to 4. The adult program is from 10 to 4. Obviously, a person who signs up to be a viewer doesn't have to view during that whole time.
Yeah.
Is it going to be recorded so that we can, kind of go through it at our own pace?
Yes, it will.
Sitting in front of this machine for 4 hours straight, I'll be I won't be able to get up.
No, it will be recorded and I put up, I believe, on the city's library's YouTube channel and probably other places as well. So yes, definitely. And what's nice about it too is that then the city library, California History Room, will have access to these pieces as well for others who are doing research and other kinds of things. Because some of these things are unusual and sort of obscure stories, and I think it'll be very helpful.
How is it going to be publicized?
Well, actually being publicized a lot through social media right now and through the city's website and library's website and through press releases, that kind of thing.
Yeah, Jordan has advertised it on the Museum and Cultural Arts Instagram site and Facebook page. The library has too. And then we've done at least one promotion through that COVID newsletter that goes out every day from the city.
Yeah, that's a good one, because there are a lot of us that get that and pay attention to it.
And I should say that in my participation, I sort of I was involved because of Dennis. So Dennis, of course, was very involved 2 years ago, and so it is sort of a library museums joint.
And I should point out that Dennis, my good friend Dennis Copeland, has also agreed to be a judge again this year. He was on them 2 years ago as well, so he'll still be a part of it.
Great.
Are there any public comments? Nat?
None right now. Let's take another quick look and see. We have no hands raised, so no public comment on this presentation either.
Thank you. Any more comments from the commissioners?
I think it's a great idea.
No.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Thank you very much, Tim. Sounds like it's well put together too. Should
Thank
be
you.
very
Appreciate it.
interesting. And knowing you, I'm sure it will be.
It'll be fun, that's for sure.
Good.
I
Thank
thought
you, Tim.
one other thing to mention about it before Tim goes, which is through the Western Flyer, we have some college students, I believe, who got involved in advising the middle school and high school students who wanted advising about, how to make a presentation be really engaging and so forth. So there's a good kind of mentorship between the young students and then slightly older students in developing their ability to present. So that's an exciting aspect of it as well.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks again, Tim.
Thank you. Have a good rest of your meeting.
Thanks, Tim.
Have a good history slam.
Thank you.
Actually, you don't have to leave, Tim. You can stay for the rest of the meeting.
As much as I'd love to stay for your whole meeting, I actually have some things I have to do.
Oh, you can't miss the next part. It's approval of the minutes from the last meeting, Tim. Really thrilling.
I appreciate it. Send me an email.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
Bye.
Bye.
And the next item on the agenda is approval of our minutes from the last meeting. Are there any comments on the minutes? I wondered if the dates were incorrect in paragraph 2 of the minutes. Everything says 2021 in the future as opposed to last year's date of 2020.
Uh-oh, where are we again?
On the draft minutes,
Okay.
bottom of the page, the last paragraph on page 12
Ah,
of the packet.
okay, you're right. Thank you. We will correct that.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments?
Yeah,
Anyone?
No.
yeah, just thumbing through it, on packet page 5, in the date area, there's a 2 over the 3, so it's unclear whether it's 2 or 3/22, 2021.
Ah, and you know what that is? That's a, I'm learning so much about packet preparation. That is a page number from a document, and then once you submit it and it prints out through OnBase or whatever, it, overwrites it with this line down below. And so you have to make sure you've cleared all that stuff off the bottom. So thank you. Sorry for the confusion.
No, it's not really a problem, but as long as we're picking nits, that was one.
Yeah, there's another one on the bottom of packet page 9.
Yep.
Where there's a 1 above a 3.
Just love
Well,
computers.
I move approval of the minutes as corrected.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Second,
Second, is that you, Bob?
yes, it is.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, then I think we have to vote individually
Oh, that's
so that you'll have a record of it, Nat.
stupid.
Yes, we do. And in fact, I'll just also note that there are no public commenters on this item as well, item 3. So for the approval of minutes, do we have approval? And I'll go down the list of commissioners. Commissioner Castagna,
Yes,
Commissioner Evans,
Yes,
Commissioner Peak,
Yes.
Commissioner Sovereign,
Yes.
Commissioner Wall,
Yes.
Vice Chair Wachowski,
Yes.
and Chair O'Neill.
Yes,
Okay, it's unanimous.
unanimous. Okay, thank you very much. So there is no public comment, I take it, because there's no one to comment already. Then we can move on to the next item, which is Museum and Cultural Arts Division Activity Report from Inga.
Yes, and it's actually, mostly prepared by Jordan. So we have Jordan here, and I'd like to invite Jordan to walk us through the highlights of activities for this past month.
All right. Hello, everyone.
Hi, Jordan.
So let's see. As we're going on, my reports are getting smaller and smaller because I am working on bigger projects. And just to go through this last month, so I had a meeting with Eric Palmer, the videographer for the city, about doing the Colton Hall virtual tour. And we've run in just a few snags on doing that. One is Eric has been busy himself, and then I've been having some medical issues. And so we are hoping to get the video made next month, but there's no guarantee as of right now. And so we're just waiting to see how that goes, but hopefully soon that will be taken care of. And the big project I was working on, I finally finished this last month, which was scanning all of our donor documents. Those have all been scanned and uploaded into the computers. And with that, I have now started working on our Presidio Monterey museums collections. I am just trying to organize, figure out the collection itself, which is my main task as artifact specialist. And there's a lot of items that we just don't know where they came from, when we got them, who gave them to us, or if they're on loan, objects on display that we don't have in our system. So I am starting that, and that is going to be an interesting task, but I like spreadsheets, so I'm okay with it. And then, so on March 4th, for Women's History Month, I did a write-up titled Women's Rights in the California Constitution of 1849. And this went out, I believe, about March 10th or 15th. It is the 10th, yeah. And it is below in the packet what I have written up. Just in short, it shows how the Constitutional Convention of 1849 was very favorable towards women in the United States compared to every other state and just in general in the United States. And with that, they allowed landowning rights to married women, and that they could inherit land. And so at that time, things were not as favorable towards women. And so we are very proud to be able to boast that we have, within the city of Monterey at our museum, that we were kind of the precursor to women gaining rights in like Wisconsin or Wyoming, I'm sorry, where they first had the right to vote. And then the last thing of note is probably going to be one of the bigger ones because people are starting to ask, and that is with opening Colton Hall, since we are now in the red tier. And so on March 17th, Inga and I met just to go over what are the logistics going to be of opening up, what do we need, are we able to do it safely? And so we made a list of things that we would need to follow the COVID protocols. And so now we're just waiting to see if this is doable and if it is safe to do so. Just because we're in the red tier doesn't necessarily mean we're ready to go. And so we're just still waiting from the city manager's office, what we're gonna do with that.
Thank you.
And there is a chart on the bottom of packet page 16 that shows you cell phone tour usage. And I'm so pleased that the museums and cultural arts had the foresight to create a cell phone tour program, because as you can see, the usage has gone from only 43 calls in 2019 when everything was open and maybe the weather was fine, to 124 in 2021. So it's a popular service right now.
Thank you. Are there any questions on the report?
Not a question, John, but Inga, I would encourage Hans and the city council to open the Colton Hall Museum as soon as possible, even if you limit the number of visitors and do all the protocol. It would be great to have the museum open.
Thank you. Thank you. And I'm sure many of us feel that way, feel strongly that we would like to see it reopen again. I know that the city manager is having to juggle a lot of priorities and wants to make sure that things are open sort of in sequence. So right now the sports center, as you know, just reopened for a few hours starting this week. And they're just trying to figure out how to best fit all of the different priorities in. So there would be a hope, for instance, that the library could be reopening as well, but doesn't look like that is a possibility anytime soon. So, and Nat might want to say a little bit more about the city manager's office approach.
That's right. I think Inga shared the information very, very well about where we are, and just trying to identify where we are fiscally. We reopened the sports center, among other reasons, because we obviously have some competition out there with InShape and Gold's Gym and other facilities. And for us to be fiscally viable long term, we need to open up now on a very limited basis and primarily with part-time staff. One of the pieces we're trying to assess at this time is where we are financially. And many of you probably have heard about the fact that luckily the city of Monterey is receiving funding through the American Rescue Plan Act. And the city of Monterey will be receiving approximately $6.5 million of that, half of it in the next 60 days, and then the other half in about a year or so. And what I shared with the Library Board of Trustees last week was that the amount of funding that we'll be receiving through the American Rescue Plan Act only represents 19% of the total projected revenue loss due to the pandemic, the $34 million we're expecting to lose. And the latest TOT numbers we just received this afternoon don't look great, and that's for the first 2 months of the calendar year. So We're going to have a little bit more of a better assessment of where things are, and we'll actually are planning on having a conversation with our council as part of a budget update in late April as part of a budget focused study session. So as we continue to evaluate our fiscal situation, we'll also prioritize how do we reopen facilities and in what order. That's a long way of essentially repeating what Inga said, but wanted to provide a little bit of background to you all.
I guess then I would respond though that the opening of the Colton Hall Museum, the actual cost to the city is pretty minimal. We have 2 part-time people there. There, as far as I know, there are no full-time staff that operate the museum, so the cost is minimal.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bill.
When Hans was interviewed on KSWB the other night, he indicated that it was the stimulus assistance was going into try to rebuild our war chest or our rainy day funds. But again, I think we should be looking at things that will encourage people to come here and spend that TOT. And I think the history component is a very important one. And so I would certainly second what Bill had to say, and that I think opening Colton would be another attraction to get them to come, because there's certainly plenty of people on the rec trail and in Cannery Row on the weekends these days.
Great, excellent feedback. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Well, Jordan, Inga, and Nat, thank you for that report. And we'll move on to an update now on the Monterey 250 subcommittee.
Yes, so,
I will note that on this last item, there were no public commenters, just for the record.
Thank you.
okay, so thank you, Nat. So the subcommittee met just recently and had an interesting discussion, and I've summarized it here on packet page 19 and 20. It was agreed that now is not the time to bring back the Monterey Mosaic pageant. However, there were some good ideas about how the script might be repurposed for a Monterey Minute or a History Minute on the radio, or some other ideas like that. And there was thinking about publicity being a really important component for when we are able to reopen Colton Hall. We would want to have a solid publicity plan in place to make people aware that a resource like that has reopened. Was there anything else that committee members would like to share from that meeting?
I think you put it in very well in the written report.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Any public comment on this issue, Nat?
No public comment on this issue.
Thank you, sir. Okay, then we can move on to the final issue, which is to approve the gift to the city of Monterey of the Mike Marotta Senior Sculptural Tribute.
Yes, so this is interesting. We all recall when we had that wonderful presentation about the proposal of the Mike Marotta sculptural tribute. And at the time, the Public Art Committee brought it forward, recommending that the Museum and Cultural Arts Commission approve it and send it forward to City Council. And that was our understanding, staff's understanding was that would be the next step. But then in the process of preparing that agenda item for a City Council packet, our city attorney pointed out that it's not really necessary to have it go before council, because council has given you as a body the authority to accept donations of public art. And so it's kicked back to you, and there's just sort of, it's just a technical detail that you haven't formally accepted it as a gift to the city. You recommended that it would go to city council for approval. So it's just a correction, and it's a nice one. So that's what is before you, and it does require action.
Thank
And I
you.
was a little bit confused by the last sentence in that report. Is the city going to ask the donors of the statue to provide funds for its maintenance?
They offered to do so.
Oh,
They offered to provide they called it an endowment, but they offered to provide funds to take care of it in perpetuity.
I see.
And they're anxious to get started on their project. So now that we know we don't need to go before council.
I'll move, we accept the project.
Second,
Thank you, John. Thank you, Bill. Is there any public comment on this, Nat?
No public comment, Chair O'Neill.
Sure. Any discussion? Inga, did you have something?
I'm sorry, yeah, who seconded?
oh, I did.
Bill?
Okay, thanks, Bill.
Do you have any commission comment or questions?
Are we gonna have a grand ribbon cutting when it's installed?
With accordion music.
All right.
May we get a motion then to accept this on behalf of the city? Oh,
Oh,
we did.
John
sorry.
already, yeah.
I'm sorry, we did. Okay, no discussion. We can call for the vote then, please. Nat?
Yes, we shall, and we'll start with Commissioner Wall,
I accept.
Commissioner Sovereign,
Accept.
Commissioner Peak,
Yes.
Commissioner Evans,
Yes.
Commissioner Castagna,
Yes,
Vice Chair Wachowski,
Yes.
and Chair O'Neill.
Yes.
That's unanimous as well.
Okay. Inga, did you want, is there a online meeting on the 24th for Brown Act?
What a good thing. Yes. So I should remind folks that at 4 p.m. on the 24th, there's a council, is it a study session?
It's a special meeting of the
A
City
special
Council.
meeting. Okay, so that's the technical term. So that is the training opportunity for all of us on the Brown Act and other matters like the Brown Act. So you're all encouraged to participate. And you might wonder, well, where's the link and how do I do that? You just try to go to the council meeting. That would be the way you would find it.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
I think that concludes the business. Do we have any comments from the commissioners?
I have one comment, John. I wondered if Inga, I mean, it's great to have things reopening with the red tier, and hopefully we'll be in the orange tier. We hope the Colton Hall Museum opens. And I was wondering about the Museum of Art on Pacific Street. I know they're doing some very limited tours, but are they going to open to the public in the near future, Inga?
You know, I haven't asked Corey about that, so I could certainly email her and find out. I don't know if Jordan knows, because Jordan attends these monthly roundtable meetings, and there is a member from Monterey Museum of Art that participates. Jordan, do you know?
I don't know. John Rexine has been attending the meetings lately, but no one has talked about opening because we just weren't there yet. And so it's just been kind of just maintaining what we're doing until we get to the point. But yeah, I haven't heard if they have any reopening plans.
That's a good question. Yeah, so thanks, Bill. I will ask Corey about it.
Okay, any other commissioner comments? I'd just like to thank Jordan and Matt and Inga for all the work that went into this and the smooth operation of the meeting, even though Chairman got in the way a couple of times. Thank you.
Yeah.
And thank AMAP for their service every time we have a meeting now. Our next meeting will be April 26th. I'm assuming we're still going to be Zooming at that time. I can't wait to get back in person,
Yeah.
but it is nice to see everybody once a month.
It is good. Thank you.
I think that's it. We can adjourn the meeting.
Okay. Good job, John.